Welcome to the Music for the Soul podcast, where we talk honestly about difficult things. This is a place where music, hope, and healing come together. I'm Becky Nordquist.
And I'm Steve Seiler. If you've spent any time in your life listening to Christian music, you probably have heard our guest today, the amazing Lisa Bevill. Lisa, thank you for being with us.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
I was thinking today, do you remember the backstory on how you came to work on one of our songs?
Oh, gosh, I don't.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say.
How long ago was that?
Whenever Katrina happened, so I think that was 2005. We weren't planning on recording a hurricane record. We were minding our own business like everybody else. And Katrina came along. And one of our donors who lived down in Florida called up and said, what are you doing about the hurricane? And I was like, we don't have a budget.
Yeah.
And he said, you've got one now. It's on the way. Get started.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you may remember at the time that people were fleeing the New Orleans area, and there were refugees as far north as Minnesota, but we had a ton of those folks in Nashville.
Wow.
We went down to, it was in Centennial Park. They had a bunch of folks there, and we went down and started talking to people there and just started gathering stories. And the people who lead off that recording on the spoken word part are people who were in the middle of that whole thing.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because I, like everybody else, quickly realized that the African American community had been hit particularly hard by this. And I thought, what do I have to say to, as a white man who doesn't live in New Orleans, what do I have to say to people that will be meaningful? So we're trying to gather some songs together and trying to do something that makes sense. And a friend of mine happened to send me a song that he'd written. And whenever somebody sends me a song, I get sent a lot of songs naturally. And I'll just be honest, it's rare that somebody sends me something that just stands me on my head, right?
Yeah.
So I click play on this thing, and I'm sitting at my desk doing some paperwork. And after a couple of lines, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I need to stop and listen to this, right? There's something here. And his name's Clarence Church, African-American buddy of mine. And so the song is called Binder the Broken. And I was like, oh my gosh, this song is perfect. And I said, and we really ought to do it as a duet. And he said, oh man, it would be so great if we could have Lisa Bevill.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
Huge fan of yours. And so it's been long enough now that I don't remember, because we didn't know each other. I don't remember how I got to you, but I found somebody who knew you, and I called and asked you, and you said yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
And
it's a beautiful song.
Thank you. Your vocal on that is just absolutely glorious. And at the end of the discussion today, we'll play that for folks. But anyway, that's how we came to know you personally and how you blessed us. And that song, to this day, I feel like it is the strongest worship style song in our catalog.
Oh, good. Well, praise God. That makes me feel great.
Amen.
That's awesome.
Amen.
That's so fun to hear. So, we have a connection, and I'm trying to think, somebody else had this connection. But there was once upon a time ago, I don't know, maybe back in the 80s, there was this show called Star Search.
Oh my gosh. Wow, you actually okay. So who's the connection to Star Search?
I'm trying to think. We had another guest that did Star Search. Who was it? Do you remember, Steve? I can't remember right now.
Nita Whitaker, wasn't it?
It was Nita. It was Nita Whitaker. He has such a great memory.
But was she as early as I was?
I'm trying to think what year she was. But the funny thing is that when I was just in high school, that was my goal in life, as I wanted to be on Star Search.
Oh, wow.
So deep, right? You thought we go from, Hurricane Katrina, and Becky's going to throw in old Star Search again.
Yeah.
Trying to find common ground here.
Yeah, that was 1984, because I had just graduated from Belmont and went and did that show. And actually, Ty Herndon, we were in a singing group in college together. He's a country artist now, but he was my dance partner in this college group.
Oh.
And he had gone and done it, I think, the first year, because the year I did it, it was the second year that the show was, was on. And that was quite an experience. I was so green and so dumb. I mean,
I'm sure I didn't realize who you were then, but I watched faithfully every week. I think it was late 80s by the time I auditioned, but I do remember listening to a lot of your stuff on the radio, and I've just so appreciated your voice over the years. And I just think it's just so cool how God has crossed our paths here with Music for the Soul. And I'm just delighted to chat with you. And so I have to ask some questions. What did
yeah,
you do before you hit CCM?
I did Star Search, but so I grew up kind of working at a music publishing house. Like we had the song "The Gambler."
That's a good
And
one.
Yeah.
yeah. So I think the writer was Don Schlitt. And then we also had the entire catalog of J.J. Cale. This is very secular, but he wrote After Midnight, Cocaine,
Yeah.
all these different songs, all the hits of Eric Clapton. So that's kind of where I started. And I started singing jingles, started singing background people's records, singing on weddings, different things like that. But singing jingles is where I really got my foot in the door. And what a different, fast paced, high pressure gig that is.
Yeah.
I would think that would be a terrific training ground for singing in the studio.
Oh, very much so. And then as a Southerner, trying to make sure that I don't sound like I'm from the South, because these jingle houses, they need for you to sound generic, all American. And so I just learned so much through that whole process. And that's kind of where I got my start, before I did the whole CCM thing.
How neat is that? It's kind of like if you want to be a writer, you got to write. If you want to
Yeah.
be a singer, you got to sing, and you sing everywhere that you possibly can. So
Yeah.
I can ask some really dorky questions, but I gotta know. So did you have a favorite jingle that you did, and do you remember it?
Oh, yes. Do I remember the jingles? The one jingle that I'll never forget is the Wrigley's Double Mint Gum commercial, because it was a year-long campaign. And I don't know if the jingle house I was working with at the time, which was Hummingbird in Nashville, if they were competing against other jingle houses. I just remember it was high pressure. And we kept singing demo after demo after demo. And when Mr. Wrigley finally signed off on things, I was the vocalist. But when they were ready to do the master and to change a few things, I was sick as a dog. And I went to my ear, nose, and throat doctor and I said, "You got to shoot me up with some steroids or something, because this is a national account and this could really, make or break things for me." So he gave me some steroids and I went in and did it. And here's how it goes. Double, double your refreshment. Double, double your enjoyment. Oh, no single gum freshen your mouth like double mint, come on and double it, double mint, gum.
I remember
Boom.
that one, and I had no idea it was you. So that's the gum that my dad kept in his study desk. And
Oh,
I would go in every day and ask him for a piece of double mint gum. Oh my goodness, it means so much more now.
it's fun. And I've actually got it up on my YouTube channel. I spent about 3 years of taking every jingle, every demo I loved, anything I've ever sung on. I've got it up on my YouTube channel. And there's like over 100 pieces of music there, jingles,
Oh.
voiceovers. I mainly did it for posterity, for my kids, because they're not impressed with me at all.
Right?
Somehow,
That's how that goes.
someday, when you're old and decrepit, you're going to go, "My mother was a singer." And they might care then.
I love it. I love it. I had to go back there with you for a while.
Love it.
Awesome.
I love the fact that you know that about me.
You know what's really interesting? The very first lunch I had when I was considering moving to Nashville was with the Hummingbird folks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did not wind up doing any writing for them. I didn't wind up doing any jingles because God blessed me with a CCM staff writing deal out of the blue, which turned me in a different direction right away. But that was the first group of folks that I met with, was the Hummingbird folks.
Oh, and they are just golden people. So good, so talented, so creative. Bob Farnsworth.
Yeah. So you've been singing jingles, and now you're fade out, fade in, you're a recording artist. So what would you say would be the biggest difference, or what would be the most surprising to people about the difference between singing jingles as opposed to singing songs for your own album?
Well, for me, there was a huge, huge God moment in the middle of that because, for me growing up in the 70s, to me, Christian music didn't exist. People have to remember there was life before the internet and there was life before, all of this stuff. And I never, I wasn't riding in a car long enough to hear a Christian radio station with my mother, or didn't hear it at home, didn't see anything about Christian music on TV. Every once in a while, a Christian quartet would come to our church, but it was usually Southern gospel. So all along, I just loved pop music. I grew up listening to Olivia Newton-John, Linda Ronstadt, Natalie Cole, Barbara Streisand and those. And that really got my heart, going because I loved those big ballad singers and just thought they were, that's what I wanted to be, and didn't think anything about it. And so when I was doing the jingle world, you're just saturated with the pop arena. And I really still wanted to sing pop music because at the time I just didn't hear anything that I thought was funky or fun to sing.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until my mom brought home an album from a garage sale of Cynthia Clawson's. And I heard her sing The Journey,
Huh?
and it sat me down. Like, I just went, wow, what a song. Like, I feel like I am that song. I'm on this journey. And her voice to me sounds like she's been through some stuff and she's on the other side. And she just, I don't know, there was just something about her voice. And I thought, wow, if I could ever sing music like that, that's what I would want. And in a lot of ways, it was kind of like a power ballad. But still, at the same time, I don't know what's happening in the Christian market. I didn't know who Amy Grant was. We're only 6 months apart in age. I'd never heard anything about her life or career or anything growing up. So Chris Harris and Mark Heimerman, they worked at Hummingbird and the jingle thing. They just said, you really should do an album. And I said, well, I kind of don't really know who I am, to be honest with you, because I've been so many voices for so many writers who are catering to a particular artist they want to pitch a song to, or I've been a jingle person and sounding all kind of different ways. I really didn't really know who I was. But I knew I wanted to sing pop music.
Yeah,
And
you're
it
sort
was
of a
one.
chameleon, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, and I had to be. I was paid to be,
Sure.
And then there was one night when literally I went to bed and it was like God poured a pot of 7 alarm clock coffee into my brain. Like he just began to talk to my heart saying, I know you think you want this whole pop thing, but that's just not what I have for you. I don't want you to go down that road. And I'm like, oh God, please don't make me sing Christian music. I don't hear anything that sounds fun or musically challenging and I just said, oh, please make it funky. And he's like, I'm not going to promise you anything. I want to know if you're going to obey me.
Mhm.
Will you obey me? Because you know me, you've been a Christian since you were 9 years old, and will you obey me? And I remember just having this back and forth, and he just said, I just want you to obey me. I just want you to say yes, and I'll take care of the rest. And I remember calling Chris and Mark and just telling him, I just had this experience and I got to go a different direction. And of course, they were elated because they're writing Christian music. And they said, well, what is your heart? And I said, well, my heart is for the youth. I didn't have a troubled teen life, but my parents were very ill when I was growing up, and it was a very hard life. And I was really responsible for a lot of things in the house and for their health and kind of taking care of them. So I know what it's like to kind of feel lost as a teen and your parents be really, really ill and not really being there for you, even though they're solid believers, Sunday school teachers, elders in the church, God-fearing people. But that was my audience that I wanted to reach. And it just kind of took off from there. Chris and Mark started writing, and here we are.
Wow. That's incredible. And I love hearing the journey that people go on because everyone is different and
Yeah.
everyone's journey is different. Like, and today music has changed so much and how to get into it and all those things. And so you decide you're going to do this album, and then what happens? I mean, they wrote some great music for you, and then what?
Yeah. Well, and then, so at that time, of course, they knew Brown Bannister, and I knew of Brown Bannister. I think I worked for him a couple of times on somebody else's record. And Brown Bannister and Sparrow Records had a joint venture that they called Vireo Records,
Hmm.
where it was kind of going to be Brown's own label. And I was one of the first artists, along with Pray for Rain, that was part of that group. And then it just kind of took off. That very first album, My Freedom, we did some adventurous music that
Yeah.
really tested the market, really tested
Mhm.
me.
So what was it like? I gotta know. Obviously, you did the jingle thing, so you'd heard yourself on audio and TV, like radio and TV, probably. What was it like for the first time to hear your voice on the radio singing a full song?
It's pretty wild. It's
It
really
feels
wild.
surreal.
Oh yeah, my sisters would call me from North Carolina and they would say, "We just heard you on the radio today." So it was awesome. But I'll tell you, the weight of responsibility for being that artist, I sometimes I kind of wish I'd been part of a group so
Mm.
that there were other people to talk to and bounce things off of. But it was just me and my lonesome. After that first record came out, the very first time I did like a really long interview that was going to be in a magazine, it was Brio, Focus on the Family's
Yeah.
Brio magazine for girls. And when you're out the first time, you're figuring out your bio, what's your story, what's your mission statement, who are you, and then tell us your story. And I just didn't hold anything back from that interview. I told them everything, and I just said, even though I was in the church all my life and had godly Christian parents, and my parents were ill, and I said, it made me feel really suicidal. Like I just wanted to check out because it was too much, for me. And then I talked about my self-esteem, my weight, and just everything a young girl would be worrying about. And so when the magazine came out, my record had come out kind of at the same time. And all of a sudden, I start getting flooded with letters from young girls.
Mhm.
And they were saying, I can't believe that you went through all that you went through because your life looks so perfect. Blonde, blue-eyed, you're this, you got, and I'm like, that's just Photoshop,
Right.
hair and makeup. You want to see me in the morning. And I was just so blown away that there, were still Christian girls and they were dealing with far worse issues that I ever had, where they'd been raped and molested by a parent or a grandparent. They're on drugs. They're cutting, self-mutilating on drugs, so much. And so I started writing every girl back. And then I thought, okay, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. And then I just started putting together a form letter and then would try to address one of their personal questions. And God finally said to me, or I said to God, I said, this is not getting anywhere. Like this is so big. Like this is a big problem.
Yes.
And I heard the Lord say to me, I want you to start a girls' camp. And I'm like, what? 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 And I'll never forget. It was on Brian Mason's show. He had a like a 3 to 4 hour Sunday show on Mix 92.9 at one point in time. And we were going over the very first record. He was playing all the songs and we had all this time to talk. He goes, well, what's next? What are you doing? What are you working on now? Of course, we were starting to work on a second record or think that way. And I said, I don't know, Brian, I think I'm supposed to start a girls' camp. He goes, what? And I just stupidly blurted it out. Okay. And then we started talking. I said, yeah, it's going to be for this age girls and they can't wear makeup and they have to wear grungy clothes. And it's, there's not going to be any men around. And his phone started lighting up. And all of these people were calling in going, oh my gosh, I would love to be a camp counselor at that. I'll come and take a week's vacation. And girls were calling in, oh, I would love to do that. I'm so, dealing with this, that, and the other. And then at the end of this thing, there was a guy who called in. He said, so if you ever do this camp, I wish that there was some way you could give all of us godly guys these godly girls' phone numbers, because these are the kind of women we want to marry.
Mm.
And for me, I thought that was so far off. I want to say that this was February when Brian and I were doing the show. And by June or July, we were in our first camp.
Wow.
It's crazy.
And what I hear in that story is, I'm thinking back to when God said, I just want you to obey me.
Yes.
Are you going to say yes to me? Because you had no idea this was coming.
Talk about a hairpin turn. Wow.
I know, me and a bunch of teenage girls, but oh my goodness. So, you say, what came after that? What happened after that? Those girls. So that camp went on for 4 years, and it was just, a long weekend in the summer, but it completely changed my life, because I got to spend 4 to 5 days with my audience. And who else can say that? I got to see them at their lowest points, their high points. We all learned so much about each other. We learned about spiritual warfare. So the weight of responsibility of being an artist completely changed for me, just in regards to what lyrics are we going to talk about? How are we going to sing the songs? Who's going to, it just changed everything for me. And, those girls, so that camp was called Place in the Sun. And I am still in contact with those girls today. And they're married, have kids. Some have lost their husbands. Some kids are getting married. And so I have a Facebook page for those girls, a little private page, but it just changed my life, completely changed my life.
Wow. And I'm sure that it changed a lot of theirs too.
Yeah, it
obedience.
did.
Obedience is sometimes hard. And like you said, like, what? Where'd this come from? But it can be like the greatest blessing. And,
yes.
When he opens the door and we're just willing to be the vessel, I think it's just beautiful how it all works together for the good, right? Was there recording after the camps, or where did that sit in your timeline?
In 94 is when the All Because of You album came out. It was produced by Tommy Sims and Charlie Peacock.
I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's a record that I would say would be what is Lisa Bevill's favorite kind of music, it would be that culmination. I loved everything that Chris and Mark did, and I love everything that happened in The Love of Heaven. But I don't know. I just love the funkiness of it, the music and where it went, and love the production. I'm a big production person. Like, I love all the bells and whistles happening in the track and lush background vocals. So that was fun.
Yes, there's lots of great elements in that one.
Well, can I take a hard left here? Because I know there's another area where you poured yourself out for other people. And and that's in the area of Lyme disease.
Yes. Yes. Wow. So I went to go see one of my girls that came from my camp up in Minnesota. And it was August. It was so hot. And she lived in a rural area. And she had 2 really long-haired dogs that were jumping in and out of an above-ground pool. And of course, you can imagine in the wilderness. And I got bit by a tick then, but I would not know that I got bit by a tick then until 2 years later. But looking backwards, I can go, okay, this is when it happened. This is when this set of symptoms. But so I saw her in August, and then by November, I was having just bizarre symptoms, tingling, weird tingling, almost like your hands are numb, and kind of felt that all over. Just started having body aches. And I just finally got to the point to where I just was going to doctors. I had to just kind of quit working, And this was in 2007 that this happened. And then it was a 2-year journey of trying to figure out what was wrong. And then a lady from my church noticed my husband and sons coming to church without me. And they said, "Where is Lisa?" And my husband began to tell her some of the symptoms. And she goes, "She needs to get tested for Lyme disease because this sounds exactly what my daughter just went through. She's got all the signs and symptoms." So I ended up going to that doctor in Missouri. Oh my goodness, that man saved my life. I traveled to see him every 5 months for 6.5 years.
Wow.
And at one point, Lyme caused me to have blood clots on both lungs. Nearly died. You know, when you have doctors look at you and go, "Oh my gosh." And what's really interesting is that those blood clots were caused by me singing, which is weird because I had been down for a while, and I finally started feeling like, well, maybe I can sing. I had this one producer who said, "Listen, I've got this girl who's got a custom record. She wants you and only you to sing backgrounds on her record." I said, "I will try." I said, "But I don't know if I can. I don't know how long I'll last." He goes, "It doesn't matter. Whatever you give us is what we'll take." And so I got there and I was feeling good. And I was like, wow, I can actually sing. Like, I'm doing okay. And I was feeling good. And then all of a sudden I had this bizarre coolness come over my head and go through my body. And I almost kind of fell a little bit. I was like, wow, okay, it's lunchtime. My blood sugar is low. I probably need to get some protein. I said, "Hey, can we stop for a minute? Let me go grab some." I said, "What do you have in your refrigerator?" So I ate a little bit. And then about 30 minutes later, we started singing again. And I thought, gosh, that was really kind of strange. And then later on that day, it was like my blood pressure felt really high. And then the next morning, I knew I was in trouble. I had a really horrific headache and had all the signs and felt all the symptoms of a heart attack. And went to the ER and they said, "Oh, we think it's heartburn. You're having all that." And I said, I don't know. This is just really, really different. And they did a CT scan with dye, and then they found the clots, and they all come rushing in and start shooting me up with heparin. And they said, "Miss Bevill, you've got blood clots sitting on both of your lungs. These should have dislodged and gone to your heart, gone to your brain." And I'm realizing I was singing with blood clots, but but God,
Right.
Yeah.
and all I could think about is that my father had passed away from blood clots as well at
Wow.
age 57. He had just had a surgery, 2 weeks prior, but it was just so random and so bizarre. Anyway, I know I'm rambling, but so through that and unbelievably, Lyme is a very long journey. It's a very complex disease. It's a very stealthy bacteria. It is a wicked pathogen that is very hard to treat. And based on wherever you are in the country, when you get bit, you can have a different strain. And I was dealing with a strain that wouldn't even be known to the CDC until 2017. Which is, I know, bizarre. I did a PICC line for 4.5 months. And PICC lines, when you've got an open vein in your arm and you're, giving yourself IVs twice a day. And I have been through it. I feel like if I can get through Lyme, I could get through just about anything because it really challenges your mental, physical. The pain from Lyme disease is about 1,000 times worse than your last surgery you've had. Migratory pain is the hallmark of Lyme, meaning, oh my gosh, it's my neck. Next day, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm having a gallbladder attack. Or my knees hurt. My feet feel hot and tingly. I can't touch them. And you just ache. I'm telling you, it is pain that you have never felt in your life, and nothing really relieves it. And one of the things for me is all of a sudden I felt like my throat was really tight, like I couldn't swallow good. So I started carrying water with me everywhere I went. Like if I ate a little piece of bread, I felt like it was going to get stuck in my throat. Your forearms, like from the elbow down, that the meat of your forearm right there just aches horribly. You feel kind of spiky, tingly, needling down your spine.
Mm.
And anywhere you've got scar tissue, that can hurt as well. Headaches, vision issues. You can see floaters on your eyes. I mean, it can affect every part of your body. It can bore into cartilage. It can bore into organs. It can pass the blood-brain barrier. It can get into your brain. If anybody's interested, definitely come to, I'm trying to think of where, if I have this information. I know in May is Lyme Awareness Month. And anybody can contact me anytime on Facebook. Send me a private message. I've got plethora of information. And I'll tell you, when I saw my list of symptoms, the very first time on my Lyme doctor's, the information he sent out, when I saw his 4-page list of symptoms, I knew I'd been saved because I saw all of my symptoms. And they're bizarre. They sound crazy and bizarre because they are. But I knew I'd been saved. So I have that list of symptoms, but it really can't be anything. And like I can hear somebody having a conversation sitting behind me or in front of me, and I'll hear them go, "Oh, well, the doctors just can't figure it out." And I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Because a lot of doctors want to try to diagnose you with fibromyalgia.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a doctor one time tell me, he goes, fibromyalgia is a bogus disease. It is Lyme disease. And they put a different name on it to sell Lyrica. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Wow.
I'm in trouble. But that, because someone did try to diagnose me with that and put me on super high doses of Lyrica that made me feel like I was out of my mind. And you can't sleep. Trying to sleep, you just have horrible, horrible sleep patterns. Anyway, for every state, there is a Lyme support page. Mm-hmm. And I talk to people with Lyme all the time, how to tell them how to get to the right Lyme literate medical doctor, how to get the correct test, which people have never even heard of the lab, but it's the lab that, all the Lyme literate medical doctors use. And I try to help people because it's scary.
Well, I'm just wondering too, anything chronic illness, chronic pain, it really does something to you, not just physically.
Oh,
and so I'm wondering if you could talk for a minute just about your spiritual journey through this. I mean, it's a crisis and it's traumatic. So I just would love to hear you speak to that journey.
So something that's really interesting is the very first night of my first symptom. I mean, it was like 2:30, 3:00 in the morning. And I thought that there was a storm outside, even though it wasn't doing anything outside. Because what I felt, it felt like a lightning bolt came in and hit the back of my neck. And then it went down my left arm. And I just remember sitting up in bed and screaming, going, oh my gosh, did I fall asleep on my arm? What's happening? And then my neck felt like somebody was putting out a cigarette on the back of my neck, just this unbelievable targeted burning, on the back of my neck. And I just remember sitting up going, oh my gosh, just looking around going, what's going on? And then almost like time slowed down for just a moment. And I literally saw on the side, I have a little side wall next to my bed. And I looked over and I saw like a movie still from the Passion of the Christ. And it was Jesus hanging on the cross. It was a really close up picture, of him hanging on the cross. His head was down and the crown of thorns was really over pronounced. Like it was bigger than anything. And in my spirit, I felt God say to my spirit, you're about to suffer, but I know about it and I got it and I'm here and I'm going to walk you through it. But this is the journey you're getting ready to take. And I just went, but why? Why do I have to do this? And, there wasn't really an answer, but I know now why, because God has used this And, we just don't know why we get chosen to get sifted. It's like, did I do something wrong? Is there sin in my life? What is this about? And why is this? I mean, were my parents' illnesses not enough? Is there some kind of curse on my life? I mean, I can't tell you how many people have prayed deliverance over me. I've gone to deliverance multiple times. People come over to my house, pray over my house, pray over me. God, he eventually healed me to where I am now. But it was a 14-year journey. And trust me, oh mercy, the familiar pathways that we think about in our youth, Satan wants to open those back up and say, you need to go back down that suicidal journey, because that kind of pain, you just cannot imagine that there's a cure for it because it's so bad. And I just remember all those suicidal thoughts kept coming. And believe me, it was all I could do. I feel like God was letting me dangle on the last unraveling thread on Jesus' garment. Like I was holding on for dear life. God, please help me. There were multiple nights when I prayed. I said, God, just let me go. Just let me die. Please let me die. Please let me die, because I can't take this. And, pain does a funny thing to the brain when it's louder than anything else in the room. Yeah. It's all you think about. And it's like, how can I stop that pain? How can I stop that pain? And every day I had these scriptures, and I'm not going to be able to quote exactly where they're from because I have a hard time with numbers. Anyway, but I eventually printed out and put on my mirror and put on my refrigerator. And I would get up and say these scriptures, looking myself in the mirror every day, saying, this is the day the Lord has made, and I will. Somehow I will rejoice and be glad in it. For I am a child of the Most High God, and no weapon formed against me shall prosper. For I can do all things through Christ Jesus, who strengthens me. For greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. So don't be anxious about anything, but in everything, with thanksgiving, present your requests before God, and the peace of God that transcends all understanding will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. And I would just say those over and over again, because it's a long time to suffer. And when things don't let up, like I understand Job. I understand a lot of the stories of the Bible, and, 14 years is a blip to God, but it was a lifetime of complete upheaval and change for myself and for my family. But man, has God used it. I'm not sure I can ever say the words, thank you for giving me this. I almost can't utter it, but I know that he was with me. And I know that he let me know, you're about to suffer, but I'm with you. So that's part of that spiritual journey. And, God continues to pour more into me and to teach me about those times and to be poured out. And like you said before, I just want to be a vessel. I just want to be a vessel to pour out.
Well, I believe for certain that you just poured out in this very moment, because it's not always a physical thorn.
Yeah.
Suffering. I know we have listeners that are listening right now that maybe they have an emotional thorn or mental health thorn with prolonged suffering or another physical ailment. But that scriptural prayer, if you will, that you shared with us, such healing in those promises of his word. And I'm sure that you would agree that in suffering, we're gifted this incredible thing. And it's just to know his character in a way. I don't know about you, but I don't think that I would know who he is the way I do today were it not for the thorns in my life. And that's where it's like you want to say thank you, and yet you don't. And yet you're so grateful for his presence and how you come to know him. And I just know that I wouldn't know him or have the relationship with my Jesus
Yeah.
were it not for the thorns and the pain. And I mean, and it's not over, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just continually ask the Lord to help us to know you more in the middle of the pain.
That's right.
And that peace it is truly beyond what we can understand. And I loved how you started that first part where you said, I will. And I always think of those portions of scripture where I will choose to praise the Lord. And I always think about my will, that there are days that I have to grit my teeth and will myself to
Yeah.
worship because I
Oh,
don't feel like it, right?
yes.
When you're in the
Oh,
thick of
yeah.
it, it's
Yeah.
not on a feeling, it's a willing to do it.
Yeah. Whether you feel like it or not, I will. I will praise
Yes.
you. Yeah. I will get up. I will move.
Yes.
I will. Yeah.
Absolutely. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for sharing
You're
your journey
welcome.
with us.
Thank you.
Yes, Lisa, I want to thank you for your transparency, for your vulnerability. Like Becky said, I know there are people who are hurting right now, who felt seen and heard and known
Good.
in those
Well,
ways.
that's what I want to come out of any of this suffering, is that people get just a glimmer of hope and to understand that, his peace, it really does pass all understanding, because it's there just even in the darkest of trauma.
I think we've set up Binder of the Broken better than I could have possibly imagined. Thank you so much for being with us today. This has been remarkable.
Awesome.
What a blessing.
You.
What a blessing you are. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much.
you, guys.
Seriously, just have enjoyed this conversation with you and just your heart. And like Steve said, the transparency. And it started a long time ago with that first Brio magazine. Who knew? But thank goodness, because that's exactly what I needed as a girl. And
Yeah.
I know so many in our world need people that are just willing to be real. And so thank
Yeah.
you for being one of those and sharing your amazing voice and your gift
Oh,
with us.
thank
And
you.
we just love you here. So just so
Thank
you
you
know
so
that.
much. I appreciate that.
All right. If you enjoyed the discussion today, please share it with a friend and give us a positive review on iTunes.
And please visit our website, musicforthesoul.org, where you can stream or download every song in our catalog, including Binder of the Broken, read our lyrics, our healing music guide, our blog posts, and much more. Thank you so much for listening. God bless.
Oh, come, you heavy heart, come find your rest. Come fall into the Father and behold. Oh, come, you weary soul, break forth with singing. Take refuge in the favor of the Lord. His peace is your reward. So with the song of the redeemed, face to face with the healer of the hurting. Rejoice, for the light has come.
Rejoice, for the light has come.
Rejoice, for the light has come.
Come shine on me.
Oh, rejoice, for the light has come. Rejoice, for the light has come. Rejoice, for the light has come. Lift your hands to the binder of the broken. Lift your voice with the song of the redeemed.
Face to face with the healer.
With the healer of the hurting and
Rejoice,
for the light has come. The binder of the broken is here. It's the healer of the hurting. Rejoice, for the light has come. Oh, rejoice, oh, rejoice.
of the hurting. Oh, won't you shine on me?
Light is